Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club, the place investors go to learn tips, tricks, and stories from other investors in the field. Before I introduce today's guest, I have three short housekeeping items to cover. First, if you like our content, the best way to support us is simply to like, subscribe, comment, or share this episode with your friends and family. Second, we are active investors ourselves and are always on the lookout for mobile home, RV, mixed-use commercial, and multifamily properties in MSAs with a population of 100,000 or more. So if you are also an active investor and have something you think we may be interested in, we would love to take a look. Send us the details of the deal at www.therealestateinvestingclub.com. Third, if you are a new investor and would like to learn how to get started or scale your real estate investing business, go to www.therealestateinvestingclub.com to check out our course. So without further ado, let's dive right in. We have a very special guest with us today, so buckle up, grab your pen and paper, and enjoy the ride. All right, we are live. Today we have Robert Politzer from New York, the president and founder of Green Street in New York City, live with us. Robert, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much. Great to be a part of your podcast and your YouTube channel.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you here. To get us started, why don't you tell everybody, who you are, where you're from, and how you got started in real estate in the first place?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm originally from Chicago. You can hear a little bit of my Chicago accent if I let it go. And I moved to New York City in 1987. I was a high school biology teacher. I taught bilingual Chinese biology, which was quite an interesting experience. Yeah, I lived and worked in China and Taiwan, so I'm pretty fluent in Mandarin Chinese. And so I taught biology for a while, and then went back and got a second master's degree in environmental engineering, and then went off and worked as an environmental engineer for about 4.5 years. And did a lot of work in New York City on various environmental engineering projects, did a lot of training as well at NYU. I was an adjunct professor there. And then started a company, originally an environmental remediation company. I've had a keen interest in environmental issues for many, many years. And I had a couple of partners. They went their own direction. I carried on, and at that time, I incorporated the company Green Street, and and initially did just what a lot of bootstrapped entrepreneurs do, which is I just did what I could to get started, which was probably starting about the hardest way possible. I started doing lead paint abatement.
Oof.
In New York City, and this is the late 90s, and at that time New York City was just a radically different place than it is today. It was a much more dangerous place, and so I found myself in some really nasty neighborhoods, dealing with some extraordinarily nasty situations with oftentimes kids who were lead poisoned, and abatement would be ordered by the Department of Health or Department of Housing Preservation and Development. So I did that for a while, and then I learned about green building, and it really gripped me strongly. And this would have been probably about the year 2000, and so soon thereafter I got an opportunity for a renovation project with a pretty nutty client down in Soho. Actually, the project was on Green Street, which is where I came up with the name Green Street.
Nice.
And at that time, anybody who was interested in green building was a kook. I gotta admit it, a kook or a purist, right? Or there was the oddball like me who had kind of one foot in each world, so that began my long journey of starting to do sort of green renovations, and got eventually into ground up projects, some smaller ground up projects, and then after doing that about 14, 15 years, which was, let me tell you, was all just lovely. Let me tell you, it was really, if before you do that, please call me, email me, let me talk to you. Okay, let me talk to you and make sure that you talk to your psychiatrist before you do that as well, because it's a really, 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 really rough business, tough, tough business, especially in New York City. But man, did I learn a lot. And anybody who's in real estate, anybody who's in an entrepreneur, I don't need to tell you, you learn by your mistakes and by
Yep.
your pain and suffering. That teaches you like nothing
Absolutely.
else. So I've got so many lessons burned into my bone marrow over the years. And one lesson I started to learn was that, it's just a much smarter position in the marketplace to be on the real estate development side rather than the general contracting side. In fact, to do the builder developer model is a much stronger model. So we started to transition in that direction and started to do some smaller development projects. But along the way, I had met up with a number of interesting, leading edge, clean technology and property technology, prop tech companies. So I had a kind of an informal network of those providers and started to kind of organize that into a more organized network, Green Street Network. And out of that emerged a smart building upgrade program. And this program was intended to be utilized on our own projects, but also could be sold, if you will, as a consulting package to other property owners. And what I solved initially with that program was the problem of first cost to some degree. And that is, I found a company in Michigan that was doing specialty tax strategies, cost segregation, and EPA 179D, and some of these other specialty tax strategies that a lot of folks don't know about. And so I structured the program to begin with cost saving strategies. So lead with a no cost benefit analysis for cost segregation. Lead with a no cost utility audit of an array of utilities that building owners have, because very often there are savings to be wringed out of utilities and utility audits where there's being overcharge, overpayment, whatever. Um, and recently, we've also added an insurance company that'll do a no-cost comprehensive insurance audit.
Oh, wow.
So we lead with these services, and we had been doing that for the last 2 or 3 years, but the program wasn't really getting the kind of traction that I had hoped for, expected, what have you. So I focused more on real estate development. I did 5 smaller projects, 3 in Pennsylvania, 2 in, these were actually fix and flips. That's another conversation I want to have with any of your investors who think that a fix and flip is the answer.
Yep.
It's the answer only under certain circumstances with a
Very
bunch of
specific.
caveats. Yeah, and right. It's like everything else, if you haven't noticed. If
Yep.
you haven't been a serial entrepreneur and tried all kinds of things that at the beginning look absolutely amazing, and then once you get into it, always turn out to be harder, more expensive, and more time consuming than you ever imagined. I don't know a single one of those that's not the case. Do
Yep.
you? Can
No,
you?
no, that's how
Right?
it goes.
That's
I
that's what.
actually I got started in wholesaling, but then flips. And my first flip, well, I did 3 of them, and after 3, I was just like, no way, this is not HGTV. This is not what they say it's supposed to be. So
You
I
know,
totally
it
understand where you're at.
it's like you're right. It's like every business. There's so much more to it than you can realize. And yet, it's funny as an entrepreneur, as an investor, but mostly as an entrepreneur, you really have to have a kind of a almost a strategic denial. You've got to, because otherwise
Put the blinders on.
the lower part of your brain's going to say, no way, you are not doing that, right? And of course, the mission part of you has got to be so strong, right, that it overcomes that hesitation. I will say this, do your homework, please. So I'm one of those kind of ADHD entrepreneurs. and like I kind of throw myself in first and I figure it out along the way. And, a lot of people do it that way. And, for some people it works. All I got to say is if I had somebody to coach, I would say, please, please do as much homework as you can on the business you want to enter into before you start, as much as possible. Most notably, know how to work your way around QuickBooks. No,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest thing. I have to call on this, probably my favorite entrepreneur's book, The E-Myth, and The E-Myth
Oh
Revisited,
yeah, yeah. Yep,
right?
by Michael Gelb, right?
Right. And, he uses the case of the woman who loved to bake pies. It was her absolute passion. So she started a pie baking business. And 6 months into the pie baking business, she was working 12-hour days. She was in debt. She was pissed off at the world. And she was learning the really, really, really hard lesson that there's there's the doing of the business and there's the running of the business of the business. And those are two very, very separate issues. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't get that right. And a lot of entrepreneurs actually don't really should not be wearing the hat of running the business. They're the more of the creative type, the visionary,
Absolutely.
creative,
Being
right?
a craftsman is much different than being a business owner, and
That's right.
they're completely different
Yes,
skill sets that you really have to develop or in not even together. They have to be developed separately, and so
right.
I definitely understand that. So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna jump in here real quick. I love everything you've said so far, but I want to just give a real quick summary. Your career up to this point, it sounds like you've done a lot of things, and I love that you come from a very entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, you've run into all these issues. You understand that the real world oftentimes, aka every time, never is like you see on TV. It's not like what you expect to happen in your mind. So I want to really quick just give a little summary. It sounds like you got started in 1987, and you were a biology and Chinese teacher, which is awesome. I love that you came from teaching into development. And then you got into environmental engineering. You were a professor at NYU, and eventually ended up in environmental remediation in New York in the 90s, which was sounds like that was a tough time. We were talking before the show that I was watching the new Netflix documentary on the mafia back then, and it sounds like New York was rough. It was rough. So. But you went through that. You did a lot of lead abatement, and then in 2000 you started doing construction for green buildings. That turned out to be a little bit more difficult than you'd expected, and you found that most of the money, most of the the headache would be cut if you just went into development. So you kind of turned your business, shifted a little bit towards development. You've been doing development since. You've also done a little bit of consulting on the green side with smart builds, upgrade programs such as that, tax and insurance audits. But your real focus still, it sounds like, is new builds or development, new builds, and fix and flips. But you're not a super fan of that. Does that kind of summarize where you've been so far in your career? Obviously, that's a
Yes,
bastardization of it, but it's
yes, yes. That's pretty much where I've been. And then again, the world evolved for me professionally last year after New York City passed New York City Local Law 97, otherwise known as the Climate Mobilization Act. And that, it turns out, is the most far-reaching climate legislation in the world, the most aggressive building-related climate legislation in the world. And it's the elephant in the room. Anybody who's going to be buying commercial real estate in New York City above 25,000 square feet is going to and is planning on holding that property. If they're looking to flip, this is not really as much of an issue. Although as we get closer to 2024, it will become a larger issue because there will be buyers who will want to be holding, and a buyer who's going to want to hold is almost certainly going to do their research, and that what they're going to realize is that they're buying a huge potential liability in bringing that building up to compliance. The Real Deal estimated that the total cost of compliance for the program would be $20 billion. $20 billion. And so finally, after all this time, and I'm going to be, really transparent about this. I'm at my heart, I'm an environmentalist, which is kind of crazy that I'm in like commercial real estate. It's kind of a little nutty. On the other hand, I would argue that it's really, really, really critical that it's commercial real estate that needs to join the 21st century in terms of performance, environmental performance. And that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
coming, by the way. What New York did is just being like what California used to do, right? And being way out ahead, and it pulls all these other states in that direction. That's what New York City has done. So we're going to see cities around the world start to basically, follow the lead of New York City, and in that way, we're really, really, really super excited about what we're doing now, which is the newest evolution of Green Street, which is Green Street NYC. And so we're at GreenStreetNYC.com. We just worked the last 4 or 5 months on a new updated website. And we are referring to Green Street NYC as New York City's real estate innovation hub. And I just get off on innovation. I love innovation. I'm passionate about
It's a
innovation.
sexy topic.
It's so cool, and basically clean tech related innovation and entrepreneurship for me is like, I mean, there's two classes of people I love the most, typically, not always. Teachers, because they tend to have the biggest hearts, and clean tech entrepreneurs, because they have both heart and mind and gut and
Yes.
grit, right? So I love working with these people. I love finding them business. It's a passion of mine. So with our real estate innovation hub, we have brought together um, the largest gas and electricity supplier in the country, Constellation Energy, um, that has hundreds of millions of dollars of their own money to invest in energy efficiency and clean power upgrade programs. So we brought them in to supplement our phase one of our program of finding savings for clients to go one up from there, to actually finance 100% of the energy efficiency and clean power upgrades of our upgrade program. So now, with bringing Constellation on board, the client has to simply agree to sign a gas and or electricity supply contract with Constellation. Constellation's the largest in the country. They're highly competitive. And so Constellation then has a program called EME, Efficiency Made Easy. So we have adapted the EME program for our phase two of our cost-free compliance program. So that is to say that what used to be our smart building upgrade is now in New York City our cost-free compliance program. So we can offer cost-free compliance to property owners for local law 97. Cost-free meaning that they're not out of pocket. Of course, ultimately, what happens is that Constellation finances those costs, both soft and hard. They usually amortize it between 3 to 5 years. It's usually about 5 to 7%. So it's basically they'll place a loan, and it's not a bank loan, by the way.
Yeah.
All the craziness around bank loans. It's a
So
streamlined process.
So just to bring everybody up to speed, real quick, because not a lot of people are familiar with the green movement in terms of how it affects the construction, commercial, even residential industries for investors that are listening and watching. So so you mentioned the Climate Mobilization Act, and so now you guys have these services that kind of address the changes that'll be coming down the pipeline. So what is, there are other investors, some in commercial, a lot in residential, listening and watching, for these, mom and pop, bootstrapped investors that, are just getting started out there, or somebody who's already established, they have their foot in the game. What can they expect for their own business, in the day to day? What are the things that will be impacting them from acts such as this? Because it sounds like it's starting in New York. Eventually, it's just going to spread across the country. So, kind of tell us, what are the impacts of this act, and what is the impact to the developer or to the investor in the day to day in terms of both, maintenance, running the business, and then ROI they can expect from changes that they have to make to their buildings.
Mm, great. So the fundamental point that I want to bring out, and this is really a critical point, is that what appears to be a liability and will be a liability, this local law 97, by the way, there are very stiff fines involved for noncompliance. So it's a liability for those building owners who try to address the issue in a conventional way, meaning that they go and they call up their engineering firm, and these are larger commercial property owners. They've got their engineering firms they work with. So a lot of these guys, they're going to call up their engineering firm. They're going to say, what the hell's going on with this law? And the people are going to say, yeah, the bad news is that if you don't start complying in 2024, you can be facing very stiff fines. Okay, what are we going to do about it? Well, we've got a whole plan. We'll send you a proposal, and we'll pull together a whole plan for you. And that's going to cost a property owner, I don't know, depends on how big the property is, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 for a large project. It's going to take 3 months to produce, whatever. And then most likely this is conventional, conventional process. And then they're gonna go out to bid for the different elements and components of the program that they've come up with, and they're almost certainly going to have to include other engineers and other consultants as part of their team. So there's going to be more fees and whatever. And I don't doubt that in the end of the day that these other teams won't achieve a compliance, but they're almost certainly going to miss some really key important features that our cost-free compliance program addresses. So the first thing is that very, very, very few of these engineers know about these specialty tax strategies, for example, cost segregation, EPA 179D and the likes, right? So they don't know necessarily about utility audits and how you can save a client with utility audits, or even the whole notion of doing insurance audits, right? So leading in that way, right? Starting by basically finding savings in a building is wise for so many reasons, most of which is because, big property owners are highly jaded. And, if you don't already know them, even if you do know them, have a relationship, they don't like to spend anything on any money up front on anything they don't understand. So, doing what you can to defray any potential costs by starting out with savings is a really smart way to go. Okay, that's the first issue. The second issue,
these savings. So this would mostly affect. You said 2,500 square feet or 25,000 square foot properties in New York specifically, but I mean, it sounds like this is going to be going all over the country. So, so this is larger commercial properties that will be required to comply with these specific acts. Is there also going to be an impact to smaller residential multifamily properties such as that? Before we continue on with today's guest, I want to tell you guys about a community I'm launching on School to help investors like yourself grow your own portfolio. In this community, you'll get access to all the docs I use, all the systems I've built, everything I've used to grow my own portfolio, as well as instructions and guidance on how to get out there and find great deals, how to finance those deals, and then how to manage them for great returns. Since we're just launching it, the price will be set at a measly $20 per month, and whatever price you join at is the price you'll have for life. We will be increasing the price as the group grows, so if you're at all interested in growing your portfolio along other investors, now is the time to join. I will put the link somewhere in the bio or on our podcast website at therealestateinvestingclub.com, so if you are interested, head on over there. With that said, let's get back to the podcast.
Right. So what I was going to get to, I'll just kind of fast forward. When you do an upgrade program correctly, it adds value. It doesn't take away from value. It adds value. It's a smart investment. This has to be looked at as a strategic investment program rather than a sort of a penalty, potential liability issue. And so it's a simple equation. So in commercial real estate, different from single family home valuation, which is done by comps, right? And development sites are also sold by comparables, but cash flowing properties are never sold by comparables. They're sold by
Cap rate.
valuation, and valuation is determined by net operating income, right? It's a pretty simple equation. So if anything that increases net operating income increases building valuation. Well, if you know how net operating income is determined, it's determined. You look at your various income, categories, and then your expenses, and a big part of your expenses are your utilities. So if a building is rendered to be more efficient, you lower utility costs, you lower operating expenses, and you increase net operating income, and thus you increase building valuation.
So there we go. So I'm just going to jump in real quick. So I liked, I was kind of tracking you as you're going along, and I just want to show the cost for the benefit for the people listening and watching is like he just hit it really, really on the head there. One of the main benefits, I mean, you mentioned before, Robert, that a lot of people, they don't want to make changes unless they really understand the benefits to them before they go into the change. Anything that's placed on them by the government, any type of regulation, it's going to get pushback unless they see the benefit for yourself. And the benefit is what you just talked about right there. Especially for commercial properties, it's all about your NOI. It's about increasing your NOI so you have a high or a lower cap rate or a higher cap rate. And when you do upgrade programs such as the one that Green Street New York City does, you can increase your NOI by lowering your utility bill, which is both good for the environment and good for your bottom line. So I like that you brought it around right there.
It's win, win, win. And I have to tell you, there's been a kind of a political agenda, if you will, in a lot of higher commercial real estate realms around the notion of energy efficiency, as if energy efficiency was some kind of left-wing plot or something crazy like that. In which case, I like to pull out a dollar, pull out a bill and burn it in front of their face. So, is that what you enjoy doing? You like burning up money? Because that's what you're talking about. Forget this liberal conspiracy crap. What are you talking about? Energy efficiency is the best investment any property owner can make. Much better than putting your money into Wall Street.
Yep.
Much better.
Yeah, just look at we all live in houses or apartments, so it's very easy to look at your utility bill and see how much your energy is, especially during the winter months here in Seattle. That utility bill goes through the roof. So it's a case in point. It's the best way to save money on your operating expenses.
For sure, and for smaller, for people who are doing fix and flips and they're doing single family properties, the absolute simple thing that everybody should include is an audit, an energy audit, and many utilities around the country will pay for a home energy audit. And the thing about home energy audits is they also include safety measures as well. So an audit's going to include looking at carbon monoxide issues, for example, lead paint, mold, all those other kinds of environmental issues. And by the way, for a smaller developer, those are potentially devastating liabilities, especially
Absolutely.
mold. But lead paint, any house built, as that probably you folks know, before 1978 is presumed to have lead-based paint. So, for example, you bought an older house, you think, well, should I keep the walls or shouldn't I? I'm kind of leaning one direction or another. Well, you know what? If it's built before 1978 and you want to flip or you want to hold, and you have the option, get rid of all the old painted components. Just get rid of it.
Absolutely.
Don't even mess with it.
And actually, on that note, so what are when you're talking about energy savings, and you're talking specifically about changes you can make, upgrades you can make to your properties? I know you do a lot in commercial, but just speaking generally across,
Yeah,
even single family and multifamily properties,
yeah,
what are the main
yeah,
changes that somebody can make to their property to
yeah,
see the highest ROI on their investment?
yeah, absolutely. Okay, residential. Start with a home audit. Um, the home audit should include a blower door test and thermal imaging of all the exterior walls. What you're looking for are two main things. You're looking for tightness of the shell of the house, and you're looking for insulation value because heat moves through walls mostly through radiation and conduction. I'm sorry, radiation and not conduction, but I'm forgetting the third. But anyway, air moves through holes in walls, right? And when air moves through those walls, if it's the wintertime, it's going to the warm air inside is going to be going through the holes to the outside, right? And vice versa in the summer. And here's the analogy: you're sitting in your bathtub, and you like a nice warm bath, and you got one of those overflow valves, where the water gets too high, it automatically goes out, right? And so and it's kind of low, so you just so what you find is you got to keep the tap running because all the water's pouring out, so to keep that warm, right? It's the exact same thing with heating air. And so sealing up the holes in our house is the absolute simplest thing to start with, making the building shell tighter. And that can be simply, after you get this blower door test done with the infrared gun, you can identify the areas of the building shell of the shell of the house. You can identify the holes. You can identify areas that are poorly insulated. So if you then hire a handyman, if you identify those areas, hire a handyman for a day or two. Have him go around with a caulk gun and a foam gun and caulk up, foam up all those holes. That's the first thing to do. Second thing would be to get adequate insulation. Especially a lot of houses don't have attic insulation, so it's like not having a hat in the wintertime. And a lot of energy will be lost. There's two main ways that energy and heat gets lost principally in houses. One is up, especially with heat, what's the draft effect?
Heat rises.
Yeah. And then foundation insulation. A lot of the folks don't have proper foundation insulation. Um, but air sealing and insulation is really critical. Now, you do have to be mindful that when you tighten up a building shell or the shell of a house, you got to make sure you got proper ventilation, especially, of course, kitchen and bathroom ventilation.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, this is even more important for commercial properties when the shell of the building is tightened up. It's really critically important. Interestingly, back in
And attic, I'll just throw attic in there because I'm going through that with one of my properties. I didn't have for some reason the developer didn't put soffit vents in, and
right,
it's just there's
and,
mold up there like
of
crazy, so I'm
course,
having to remediate that.
of course, like duh, And by the way, I want to also give a shout out to the field of building science
Oh
and
yeah.
the Building Performance Institute (BPI). I did the BPI single family and multifamily training, and it was really enlightening. And the first thing you learn is how unbelievable it is, how much energy is lost just from air traveling through holes.
Oh
It's
yeah. Huh. Interesting.
amazing how much energy is lost, how much heat is lost. So you always begin, whether it's residential or commercial, you always want to begin with a higher performing shell, right? That's gonna lower the amount of heat loss and heat gain. And by the way, in the commercial side, there's a program that came out of Germany called Passive House, and it's really starting to grow considerably in New York City. Passive House involves turning usually a commercial building shell essentially into a thermos, super tight, super insulated, where you drive down heating and cooling loads. You ready for this? Hold on to your seat. By 70%.
Ooh, nice. Think about those savings. A $300 bill goes to whatever 70% of 300 is.
Wait, it gets better because when you've lowered when you've made the building shell more efficient and you've lowered the loss of heat in and out, not only are you saving now, right, on because there's just less heat loss and heat gain, but when you're building the project, you can downsize the HVAC equipment because it's not going to
Mm.
need to do as much work. So you can save money. And this is how usually, and this is the other point I wanted to bring out. What a lot of folks don't do is the proper integrated, holistic design. So if you don't, for example, want to do work on the building shell and then have a mechanical engineer providing mechanical plans based on a conventional building. You
Yep,
want
that
to
makes
make sure
sense.
that design is integrated together,
Hmm.
and that's when you can really get the high performance in the with the actual product. So that's another component that our cost-free compliance program brings, which is an integrated design and build process. So that
Absolutely.
yeah. So all those advantages we're building in get built out properly and taken advantage of.
I love it. So I mean, you have so much wisdom to share on this topic, and I love that you've been able to give us so much so far. We are running towards the end of the
Sure.
segment, so maybe in the future we'll have to have you back on. But for this time, first I want to summarize what you just said for the listeners and people watching on YouTube. The things that they can, the actions they can take from what you've said so far is to get a lower door test, seal up those holes in your house, get insulation both on the top of your house and the bottom in your attic and the foundation, and then just make sure you have proper ventilation in your kitchen and bathroom specifically. So thank you again, Robert.
One more real quick thing. I'm sorry for houses. The sill plate. That's another really important that where there's a lot of loss. The sill plate of the house is also a really important place to air seal and insulate.
And for people who are not familiar with that, what is a silk plate?
That's where the frame of the building sits on the foundation.
Okay,
That's an additional plate, and that's where there can be a lot of air loss.
gotcha. Perfect. So we do have a few more questions, but this is the lightning round, so this is it'll go a little bit quicker here.
Sure.
For one, if you could go back to the Robert who started out back in 1987, you were a biology teacher. You had just learned Mandarin. Go back to that Robert and give him one piece of advice going forward as an entrepreneur in real estate. What is that piece of advice?
Oh, uh, it's funny because I'm part of me that really understands the business would say go learn all about real estate finance because and be on top of real estate finance and whatever you do be that's a much higher place to be. You've got so many more avenues, so many less headaches. Obviously there's a lot of learning, but get on top of the finance side of real estate, and then of course really study up on all the legal aspects, but mostly try to position yourself in the finance side of real estate, and then combine it. If you're a developer, that's great. Combine it with your development work and your passion, but master the finance
Focus.
components first.
Awesome. I love it. And finances are, I mean, it's pretty much one of my mentors said, I'm going to butcher this, but his advice was real estate is really just three things. It's numbers, people, and paper, I think is what he said. And yeah, so the numbers, the finance is so integral to everything that you do in real estate. So I love that you pointed that one out. So awesome. So 1987, focus on finance. That is the one piece of advice you'd give going forward. There's great books out there about the subject. Give us two recommendations. One book that you would recommend for real estate, one for just non-real estate, anything, any topic there.
Hmm. Well, definitely general entrepreneurship, absolutely must read is the E-Myth Revisited. That's absolute must read for any entrepreneur. Uh, for real estate, Hmm. Interestingly enough, um, that is a harder one. I can't, there's not one particular real estate book that's sticking out, but like I said, you know, uh, I would start it with something like, Real Estate Finance for Dummies. I mean, whatever it is that's gonna get you the first step towards, and by the way, and if you want to be a real estate developer, it's a whole different level of real estate finance understanding, especially in creating pro formas.
Oh yeah.
So that's a whole area of study that, you could spend 4 years of college on.
Awesome.
And yeah.
So E-Myth Revisited, and I can attest to that. I read it as well. It's a great book for anybody getting started in entrepreneurship. Doesn't matter
Oh,
what segment you're in, but entrepreneurship in general. So
let me
good
say also,
recommendation.
can I put this book up?
Oh yeah, that's a great one. Emotional intelligence.
You know, talk about what we are not taught in school that is so critically important to our lives in every aspect of our lives. Emotional intelligence. I didn't even know what that meant until like 10 years ago. And of course, I stumbled around, you know, in life, bouncing off of all kinds of situations and walking like, why did this happen? What happened there? And frankly, I was, emotionally pretty dumb, like most people. And you know what? It's like walking around with a disability. It's like having a disability. If you're emotionally dumb, you have a disability. And compared to being emotionally intelligent, you then have an ace in your hand. So that's the other thing. Work on your emotional intelligence. It will
Absolutely.
it will
And
do
that book in
much
particular, I
good.
read that one as well. That's a good book. Daniel Goleman, correct?
Uh, um, let me see now. Um, who is this?
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
whoever when you're looking anybody who's listening or watching, just Google it. I'm sure you'll find it. Emotional Intelligence 2.0, really good book.
yeah.
So Robert, thank you again very much for showing up today. I appreciate having you on. I appreciate all the wisdom that you've shared with us. You've given us a lot, but you need to receive as well. So if someone were to bring you something, be it a lead, be it a good book, piece of information, what would you want to receive?
Well, we are reaching out now, doing an outreach to anyone who works, especially in New York City, in real estate, and who is really turned on by what we're doing and wants to be a part of it. We've got all kinds of ways that we can get you involved. If you source commercial real estate deals, we have a listings page. We're doing commercial listings. We're doing commercial brokerage, so we can work out a very attractive program that way. If you know property owners in New York City with buildings above 25,000 square feet, we have an affiliate program. We will help. We will pay for bringing in leads in that way. Um, we are looking for cutting edge, leading edge, clean tech and prop tech vendors to be a part of our team. If that's what you do, we want to hear from you. If you know somebody who does that, we want to hear about them. That's the best thing right now. I'm just 150% in on building the greatest real estate innovation hub in the world. And so anything any of your people watching this can do to help make that happen, very interested in hearing from them.
Perfect. And on that note, if somebody did want to get in contact with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Robert at GreenStreetNYC.com.
There you go. You heard it from him, Robert at GreenStreetNYC.com. If you want to get in contact with Robert. Again, Robert, thanks for showing up. For everybody listening and watching, thank you guys very much for hopping on here and going with us on this journey. Again, the best way to support the show is just to subscribe, like, and share with your friends and family. And we look forward to everybody joining us on the next episode.
Great.
Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Investing Club. If you feel we provided value, we would appreciate it if you hit that thumbs up, share it with your friends online, whatever it may be. If you'd like to share or partner with us on an investment deal, we are always looking for quality projects. Go to www.therealestateinvestingclub.com to get in contact with one of our partners. Otherwise, I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. All right, before I officially sign off, I have a quick announcement to make. If you're interested in becoming a passive investor in one of my deals, my own company, Kaizen Properties, is looking for capital partners for our upcoming projects. We invest in what are known as recession-resistant assets, mainly self-storage facilities, mobile home and RV parks, and industrial properties. If you're interested in investing and would like to learn a little bit more about my company, our investing criteria, and some of the previous projects we've done, go to the Real Estate Investing Club podcast at therealestateinvestingclub.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. Click on the Invest With Us button. That'll pop up the investor form. Fill that out, and we will reach back out to you as soon as we can. Or if you prefer a little bit more of a personal touch, you can reach out to me at gabe@therealestateinvestingclub.com. So really, that is it. Again, it was a pleasure hanging out with you guys during this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.